Hey, are you ready for mind-controlled VR? We're at a place and a time right now with BCIs, or brain-computer interfaces, where that's surprisingly easy to do, even for a hobbyist just messing around. This guy used a brainwave sensing headband to make his virtual avatar's ears move. That's not how mine are actually moving right now, but we will get to that. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. People don't say that anymore because you don't really tune your TV anymore. I'm old. But as cool as this is, it's not even the most impressive thing that this kind of tech can be put to use for. But it did capture my imagination very, very specifically. So, here's the question of the video for you. What part of a VR avatar would you choose to have controlled by your thoughts alone? And if you are going to be dirty about it, at least use some clever euphemisms in the comment that you leave, just for the sake of being family friendly. To answer my own question, I would do what this guy did. I would do my ears. Hello again, I am Blunty, and right now I'm a bit desperate for some help surviving, frankly, so if you can spare anything, I'd really appreciate it. There's a link in the pinned comment in the down below. Thank you hugely to those already helping out. It means so much. I'm not exaggerating here. I'm in trouble. So, this whole brain-controlled VR thing, this post on the hellscape formerly known as Twitter has captured a lot of people's imaginations. The video has 3.5 million views. There's hundreds of comments and nearly 3,000 reposts. And it's not even some sort of new invention or even new application of this type of invention, but it's being accomplished by a head-worn device called an EEG, or, say it with me slowly here, an electroencephalogram. 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 Nailed it. An electroencephalogram is a passive, non-invasive device that sits on your head and detects some electrical activity coming from your brain. About a year ago, a streamer called Perry Cariel, I think that's how you say it, it's this, but they kind of went viral because she not only played, but beat the notoriously challenging Souls-like game Elden Ring using nothing but an EEG device slapped on her noggin to control everything her character did. She wasn't the first to play games using an EEG device either, not by a long shot. This is years and years old technology, but the particular complexity and difficulty of this challenge, that being Soulsborne, really captured people's imaginations. A fistful of years back, there was a novelty headband called the Nekomimi that used this EEG tech to control motorized cat ears, and it was these that first piqued my interest in this tech as a communication tool. You see, I am autistic, and while thanks in large part to some spectacularly shitty representation of supposedly autistic coded characters in TV and movies, a tremendous amount of people believe that autistic people we all struggle with picking up the emotions of other people. We're just emotion blind to everybody, and that makes us rude and insensitive and whatever. And it's just not true, at least not consistently true. Some autistic people can certainly be a little bit like that, but autism is a galaxy of differences. It's called the autism spectrum disorder for a reason. There is a spectrum of different mixes of autistic traits we might display, including sensitivity to emotions. Me personally, I'm way at the other end. I am acutely sensitive to emotions, both from others and my own. I am strongly empathetic to other people's moods. I get affected by them very easily, and I often get quite overwhelmed by my own emotions, as I can really struggle to filter and process and regulate them. But something I don't do especially well is communicate my own emotions, both in the way I talk or type, the way I move my face and my body language. I kind of ham it up a little bit when I'm on camera, whether virtually or in real life, for the sake of sort of more effective communication and easier watchability, but that's not what I am as standard baseline Blunty IRL. That is an on-camera performance meant to make my videos easier to watch. But I often get tone policed or have people claiming I'm being rude or aggressive or indifferent when I'm really not feeling that at all or intending to project that. It's just that I have a slightly flatter affect than a neurotypical person might be expecting from a communication interaction. So, What if I could have something like cat ears in real life or on a virtual avatar that respond actively to my mood and emotive state based on my brainwaves? Most people are actually already surprisingly good at reading mood from animal ears just kind of almost instinctively. Especially considering our own ears don't move, so this is largely learned behavior. We feel it from our dogs and our cats, and we've been trained on it since childhood, with the countless highly animated anthropomorphic cartoons we all grew up with, who heavily use the highly visual and expressive ears to convey emotion. I recently went on a journey in an attempt to get to grips with the real truth of what, in my experiences to that point, told me were a very misunderstood subculture. The Furries. I highly suggest you give the video I made about that experience a watch, even if, perhaps especially if, furries have always kind of weeded you out. I learned a bunch of interesting things about them. But most relevant to this video is my attempts to find an anthropomorphic animal avatar, a fursona as they're called in the fandom, that I felt suited me. I was trying to understand why furries pick the animals they do. What is their relationship to that anthro character? And I settled on a fruit bat, also known as a flying fox. I've always thought bats are awesome, the only flying mammal. Most of them can see in complete darkness using sonar. They just scream at things and they know where they are. It's fantastic. They're so cool. But what attracted me to the bat fursona was, in large part, how expressive I felt with great big wings. They exaggerated my body language. They took up a lot of room, something I don't have a natural inclination to do. And with a few relatively small gestures in real life, I could make large, highly visual and expressive movements in VR. I love it. But the wings are also not always practical for interacting in VR. They're quite obnoxious sometimes, to be honest with you, as glorious as they are. Which is why I have a wingless version too. But I do miss the expressiveness. It's not quite the same when I do this, is it? One is like a glorious fan dancer, the other one is like a wacky inflatable flailing arm tube man. You've probably noticed by now the ears on this avatar have a little animation cycle. They turn and flick just to give them some life and personality. But I have thought many times how neat it'd be to have a VR headset with some basic EEG sensors built into the headband, which I'm already wearing, that could tie into the moving ears. I've liked the idea of cat ears on humanoids for as long as I can remember. Literally, I can probably blame anime for that and the cat girl trope, or indeed cat boys. But I've always liked the highly clear and very readable expressiveness they offer. But here we are, just a fistful of weeks after I sort of was working on these avatars, the bat avatars, and I had these thoughts about EEG controlled ears on my VR chat bat, and Rantus has just gone and shown off the idea in use right there on social media. Oh, hey, that's what I was thinking about wanting to do. You figured it out. Hey. But he's not the first with this either. Many people have had this thought and some people have executed it. I remember hearing once that someone else had done a similar thing, but for controlling their avatar's tail. They had like a doggy, a woofy avatar or something, and they hooked up the EEG to their tail. So when they thought happy thoughts, their tail would wag, which I think is brilliant. Heck, even on more humanoid avatars, you could tie in some preset facial animations to indicate mood also. Something currently a lot of VR chat avatars can do either through manual menu selection or through controller puppeteering. Like if I do this, I do my little squinty face. But facial expressions can also be done through certain VR headsets that have facial tracking. Some have little cameras inside to track your eyes. Some can track your mouth movement either natively or with a special add-on. And they are undoubtedly way more accurate and reliable than trying to sort of detect emotion through an EEG, but they're also more complex, more expensive, more power hungry than an EEG would be. But yeah, it's a neat trick, isn't it? The devices can be a bit hard to train for reliability if you're doing something very, very specific and you have to do it for each individual. Like what's her name who did the Elden Ring thing, had to sort of train her way into thinking about certain things like to heal. I think she would imagine something falling on her face. To attack, she would imagine pushing something away, and you had to sort of repeatedly train over and over and over again on the headset before she was ready to actually play the game like that. But if we're just detecting sort of mood, that, in theory, is a lot simpler to do because there is a fairly clear difference between alpha and beta brain frequencies, whether you're calm or excited, or depending on where you measure it in the brain, you might be thinking about moving something. So while I don't see myself playing Monster Hunter using my mind powers anytime soon, I'd rather play that game properly as intended with the controller and have fun that way than goof around with a gimmick brain power version of it. But I do think there's a lot of potential for this stuff to enhance communication and expression, especially in virtualized spaces. Oh, and in case you're wondering, despite being very, very tempted by them, I never did actually buy the Neko Mimi headset because it turns out they cut a lot of corners to make it a novelty toy back then. It was like 12 years ago or something like that. And it was pretty unreliable at actually detecting your mood and emotion. But hey, it's been years since that came out. I'm thinking surely the technology by now has been refined a bit. We have more sensitive sensors. We have better algorithms. Access to better processing speeds to churn all that through. Anyway, that's it for me today. I just wanted to have a talk about this, inspired by the post with the emotion ears. I am Blunty. Thank you as always to the patrons scrolling up above there. And again, if you can help, please help. Link in the pinned comment in the down below. But thank you. And thanks for watching. I am Blunty, and I will catch you next time.